Thank you very much. Um, Good afternoon to you all. I bring you greetings from my ambassador, Ambassador Gina Blay, and I'm happy to be here to exchange views with you. It's not a lecture as such, but for us to share ideas together. I had the sense that, first of all, in Ghana, they say when you forget and you go back, we don't hate it. So my regards and my greetings to the board of advisors and all observed all protocols. Thank you very much, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. So, like the host or the compere said, my name is Maxwell. I just want to share something briefly with you on the linkage between the climate question, and security. Climate change has become a very, very topical issue today in our world. And because of its impact, we cannot push it to the back burner. I want to start by taking a quote from the NATO Secretary General, which underpins what I'm going to talk about. It says that climate change is the overarching challenge of our time. The scope, scale, and intensity of climate change effects are projected to increase, ramping up considerably after 2040, as assessed by the July report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. These conditions represent a threat multiplier that has significant security implications for NATO at a tactical, operational, and strategic level. For that reason, NATO heads of state and government agree that NATO should aim to become the leading intergovernmental organization when it comes to understanding and adapting to the impact of climate change on security, and endorse NATO's Climate Change and Security Action Plan for the year 2021. I'll also take, when you say a threat multiplier is a term that is used to describe climate change implications for security in both policy realm and climate security literature. Climate change is regarded as a root cause of instability and vulnerability. The phrase threat multiplier connotes the idea that climate change, rather than being a typical direct, it connotes the idea that climate change, rather than being a typical direct security threat, conspires or intersects with other factors to contribute to insecurity. I will also take a quote from Rosemary DiCarlo, former UN Under Secretary for Political Affairs and Peace Building. She says, the relationship between climate-related risks and conflict is complex and often intersects with political, social, economic, and demographic factors. The risks associated with climate change-related disasters do not represent a scenario of some distant future. They are already a reality for millions of people around the globe, and they are not going away. And they are not going away soon. So, ladies and gentlemen, with this quote, I want to start by saying that climate change refers to the long-term shifts in temperatures and weather patterns. These shifts may be natural. However, since the 1800s, human intervention and activities have been a major driver of this phenomenon, particularly due to the burning of fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. It has been posited that climate change has direct effect on our security. I will therefore attempt to engage you in this discourse to establish some kind of a nexus and indicate why climate questions need to be taken very serious. I hope we all know this already from the various literature and UN climate change conferences, COP27, COP28, the Paris Agreement, and all of that. So it's something that we know about, but my aim here is to put it on the front burner so that we all get to engage, and then it becomes part and parcel of us, so that we'll be people who will be able to reach out to others and spread the importance of this, because it underpins our very existence. The climate issue has become vexed and a complex matter, resulting in political polarization and its attendant effects, so that the subject itself does not lend itself for an easy intellectual and scientific discourse. The linkage between climate and security is what has led to the concept of climate security, which we are told is a political and policy framework that assesses the impact of climate on security. Thus, it represents the national and international security risk induced directly by changes in climate patterns. The point of departure of the concept is that the climate-related change amplifies existing risks in society and endangers the security of humans, ecosystems, and the economy, infrastructure, and societies. In our interaction, we'll be looking at three critical paradigms that fit into the narrative of the impact of climate on our security. This will be environmental security, human security, and geopolitical security. Climate security is a form of environmental security, but they are not interchangeable. Environmental security will therefore refer to situations like natural and environmental disasters impacting people, resources, infrastructure, particularly in the short term. It may also refer to the phenomena such as deforestation, pollution, and emission of greenhouse gases and other human activities affecting the environment. It is thus the reciprocal relationship between man and his habitat. It must be emphasized that not all environmental security incidents arise from climate change. However, both environmental and climate security issues impinge on human security. Human security affects the wider national security architecture. Human insecurity emerges when humans cannot satisfy their own basic physiological safety and social needs. The inability to satisfy these needs can lead to feelings of disenfranchisement and marginalization, which can then manifest in ways that impact directly on national security. Undoubtedly, there's a link between the environment and human health. Human health itself is dependent on the environmental issues which impinge on our existence. In some instances, the environmental factors are too sudden and grave, and they affect our health. For instance, it's estimated that between 83 and 120 million people went hungry by the end, would have gone hungry by the end of the 2020, at the onset of the COVID-19 in 2020. This represents more than between 20 and 120% of people who endured famine and hunger between 2014 and 2019 combined. There is also a direct correlation between malnutrition, poverty, joblessness among several populations depending upon the environment and conditions that affect their access to food, which may have been reduced or non-existent because of adverse climatic conditions. When we are confronted with this kind of insecurity, the effect transcends individuals. It may culminate in violent unrest and instability. Environmental issues like drought, therefore, have a direct impact on people's livelihoods, particularly for families dependent on agriculture, and can amplify social, economic, and political tensions. So when you look in the West Africa region, in the Sahel, is a case in point. The regions bordering Mali, Burkina Faso, Niger, it's become a hotspot because of these issues of climate change. You have sometimes transhumans, the cattle and of herders moving over from those dry areas and coming in down south, and it brings about conflict, farmer-herder conflict, because these cattle, in their bid to graze, they will come and destroy people's farms. All of these things also lead to social unrest, and it doesn't bring about cohesion in the society. So we're looking at geopolitical issues that affect security. Geopolitics refers to the concept of physical territory and resources and the political implications that these resources represent. Geopolitical security therefore implies a linkage and integrity of national power, prosperity, and integrity of a state's territory, resources, and features. Inasmuch as geopolitical security emphasizes state security, it is self-evident that some previous conflicts and emerging ones emanate from issues related to all the three paradigms that we are looking at. Environmental and human security challenges exacerbate geopolitical issues, particularly when there is a paucity of access to basic resources and infrastructure is deficient, unavailable, or non-existent. Human security issues precipitated by drought could easily lead to migration and transhumance, as I've mentioned earlier, and exploitation by criminal elements due to hardship and loss of livelihoods. It is understood that surface air temperatures in the Arctic region are rising 2 or 3 times faster than the global average. This has precipitated the melting of the Arctic ice cap, thereby offering new opportunities, quote unquote, for potential exploitation of underwater hydrocarbons and other related energy resources. As a result of the melting of the permafrost, that is the frozen earth, which some have been for a very long time, the ground and adjoining regions where this permafrost are have begun to shift, and therefore they are jeopardizing infrastructure development. The high temperatures in the Arctic region have thus resulted in the intensification of regional wildfires, which has concomitantly enhanced permafrost thaw. So that with the thawing of the permafrost, because these are like glacier-like things that have been there for a long time, its effect is such that sometimes when they melt, they shift the very grounds on which some of these, societies are built on. So environmental and human security, particularly resource insecurity, are drivers of many geopolitical conflicts around the world. Examples of this include the Ethiopia-Egypt tensions that built up as a result of the dam that is it the Renaissance dam, or they call it, I don't know if I got it right, between Egypt and Ethiopia. So tensions arising from these things lead to insecurity, because it is understood at the time the Egyptians feared that the water levels of the was it the Red Sea? Is it the Nile? Sorry, the Nile was going down. I think the source derives from way downstream. So the fear was that if they dammed it at that part, they were going to lose water, and they're really dependent on the Nile for their livelihood. So you realize that it became a very vexed issue. Sometimes people threatening even to bomb the dam and things like that. There was talk of that. I don't know where it extended. So these are factors that really impinges on security. It may not be localized. The effect of it can have wide-ranging political and economic effects. So we have issues like that in Africa, as I've mentioned, the Lake Chad basin, sometimes flooding, and sometimes you see that the water dries up. All these animals and cattle that feeds around those places becomes a problem. So when there's insecurity, there's migration. And when sometimes these people who are herders, the young men, able-bodied men among them, if they can't find work, they become vulnerable. And then they get to be recruited by, Boko Haram and those other insurgents that are in those places. So then they fall easy prey, because then they come and they're able to easily recruit them into their rank. The same thing is for those regions of Burkina Faso, Mali, Niger, etc. Because of drought and lack of rainfall and other factors. So it becomes a very hotbed for insurgent activity. So the thing is that often because of migration, the receiving states become overpopulated, and the strain is put on the infrastructure and becomes a fertile ground for conflict and anarchy. And the shaping of nationalist sentiments, all these raise heightened security concerns. It would be wrong to assume that climate change is the only reason why threats to security emerge. However, its complex nature can often discourage an acknowledgement of its impact on security. Indeed, if nations, international bodies, and civil society, and the ordinary man on the street paid more attention to the climate question and its impact on livelihood, it will go a long way in contributing to the maintenance of peace and security in our world. I wish to thank you for your attention with these few words. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Sure.
Your insights on the one hand, perspectives from Ghana, but also beyond, really in the international framework. So I'm sure you've inspired some comments and questions. As always, if you could please raise your hand if you'd like to pose a question or make a comment. We can begin the interactive part. Okay, excellent. Do we have a second microphone in the back? Excellent. Okay.
Hello, sir. Thank you for the presentation. My name is Abdul Wahab. I'm from Algeria. And I want to know if Ghana Foreign Service in general has had any experience in trying to solve some international conflicts, and especially the ones that we have in Africa.
Thank you very much. May I go ahead?
Please.
Yes, Ghana indeed has. You realize that in the West Africa sub-region, we play a very critical role in ECOWAS. That is the umbrella organization that houses the West African states, the Economic Community of West Africa States, of which our president became chairman just recently. So we've been very active. You realize at the time Togo, they had issues going in for the elections. This is an internal thing I'm talking about. Opposition, most of the time, this tends to be the case in our region when it comes to handover, transfer of power. You realize that the opposition and the incumbent government, more often than not, there are serious issues with lack of trust with the electoral system. There's more often than not, it degenerates into some kind of confrontation. So our president dispatched intermediaries there and to see both parties and then try to resolve those issues. We've done also a bit because of what ECOWAS does. You realize that way back when the Liberia conflict flared up, this was it in the early 90s, the Liberia war that brought Charles Taylor, and it led to a lot of the killing of a lot of people. So Ghana actually, together with Nigeria, led, and our then was the Army commander, Brigadier General Anokwenu. He was the one that led the ECOWAS team to Liberia to bring about peace. So we are very much involved in peacekeeping, and in the United Nations system, Ghana is really very much known for its role in bringing about international peace and security. So we are very much involved. Recently, we have done what we call the Accra Initiative. The Accra Initiative was an initiative of our president due to the impact of insurgents from the Sahel region. You know, Ghana is just below the Sahel. We are below Burkina Faso. There is Cote d'Ivoire to our left. There is Togo. There is Benin. There is Nigeria. So you have Mali, Burkina Faso. You have Niger, and to a bit far away you have Chad. So these insurgent groups are in the Sahel. That is Boko Haram and AQMI, Al-Qaeda in the Maghreb region and all of that. In Mali, You realize that that is the reason why the French forces went to Mali in there, because ACME was almost going to run over Mali. So that's what really brought about the French presence. So what the fear now is that the insurgents are trying to move downwards to the coast, and they want to come to the coastal country to be able to have access to the sea. So once they have access to the sea, it can spell a lot of danger for international, what do you call it, shipping route and supply chain. So what our president has done is to bring about this Accra initiative. The aim is to serve as a deterrent for the insurgents not to be able to reach the coastal states, and through that has been able to rope in. Germany has become a key partner. Most of the European nations. Just last November, there was an international forum that was convened in Accra to this end, which the partners are coming on board. Recently, Germany has announced, I think next year they have a presence in the Sahel, as you may know, Germany, France. But because of the issues that are going on with the Mali, Burkina Faso, other and those nations agitating for the French to leave, there's going to be a void, and the Germans are going to leave anyway, but they're going to leave in about a year's time. So they are looking at cooperating with regional bodies and other including the Accra initiative. So that is how deep we are involved in conflict and resolution and peace building. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm happy that you actually elaborated of this Ghana's role in mediation and peace building in the area. And Ghana is well known to be one of the major countries members of non-aligned movements.
Sure.
And the name of Nkrumah was, well known, the household name everywhere. Now, with all the issues and developments and the not only in Africa and also everywhere else, I want your comments on how Ghana and countries like in the vicinity, how the great power competition plays out in that area, and just a few comments that you have about it, just your views.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Very well, very well. You said great power competition.
Yes.
Okay. Well, it's an interesting one. Like you said, Ghana is a non-aligned member of the non-aligned countries, and we've always maintained that we respect the sovereignty of states. You realize that during the Ukraine war recently with Russia, Ghana has been one of the countries in Africa that has vehemently has been opposed to the invasion of Ukraine, and we have made no secret of that. We've spoken about it in the international fora, the UN, etc., along with Kenya and some other countries, because we believe in the sovereignty of and territorial integrity of states, and that no state has the power to run over any other country as long as they are sovereign states on their own. So we, as much as possible, we maintain our independence. We collaborate with countries. All over. We have diplomatic relations with all the major powers. So to say, we do business with them, but we have always been careful to maintain our neutrality and things that will impinge on our sovereignty. Of course, you will have, because of the way geopolitics and international politics works, you will find some, overtly, not covertly, some of these things come about, but because of who we are as a country and the ideals that we stand for, we try to live in peace and derive maximum benefit from every member of the international community. So we don't fall prey to manipulations as such from bigger powers. We tell it as it is. If it will inure to our benefit as a country, we take it. if it will inure to our benefit and it will be detrimental, we stand our grounds as we've always done. Thank you very much.
Okay, please. Could someone bring a mic from the back right here?
Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
I just want to bring you to some new phenomenon that is happening now, that most industrialized countries are looking into Africa for carbon credit sales vis-a-vis the carbon sinks. How do you look at the use of all these? Like, people go to Africa and get credits because they have to produce, and produce more carbon in the atmosphere, and then plant trees, for example, in Africa for the carbon sinks, and then the industry is continuing. Is this really going to cover and protect the whole world, even if the whole Africa, but probably every country said we are going to plant trees, and then we get the money for the credit, for the credits that we sell? Is this really going to solve the problem of climate change?
That's a tough one, but I guess what I would say is that the climate question, it's a very vexed issue, and it manifests in various facets. I do not think that alone will solve the climate question. There's more to do by states, and we've talked about issues of climate financing, adaptation, and mitigation. So it's a package, really, which I believe that countries that have signed on to the Kyoto Protocol and all what it stands for have to do their best to observe it. We are looking at bringing emissions and things down to, is it 1.5? I don't know, by a certain few. So I suppose if we all countries work at it to push towards that goal, that is what will inure to the universal good, instead of probably traveling to Africa to plant trees and getting carbon credits for it. This will be my take on it. Thank you.
Comments or questions? Because I wanted to ask maybe two, if I may. So first of all, of course, we're here at the Academy for Culture Diplomacy, and so I need to ask you the question, what role does culture play in the foreign policy of Ghana as a whole? Is it really just, let's say, business, politics? What role does culture and culture diplomacy play? Second question, are there initiatives in Ghana trying to embrace in a greater way the diaspora of Ghana? Because you really see, I think, a big opportunity as you look at the African diaspora, which technically is bigger than the population of the African continent, and socioeconomically, on average, in a better situation, which explains why the Western Union transfers usually go in one direction. The problem that I've seen is it seems to be very fragmented. The Ghana diaspora works with Ghana, the Nigerian diaspora works with Nigeria, the Ethiopian diaspora works with Ethiopia. I don't know of many initiatives really where the diaspora is coming together in more of a pan-African sense. So I'm just curious, have such initiatives begun? And do you see also a potential there where working closer with the diaspora may actually make it easier to bring more trade and more investments to Africa?
Sure. I think I'll start with the second one. Ghana is doing quite a bit in the front of the diaspora. We had, I think, in 2021, what we call the year of the return. And after that, the sequel to that was the after the return. The year of return witnessed the coming of 1 million people from the diaspora within the year to Ghana. You had a lot of African Americans in particular, and those from the Caribbean coming over. Our president made it a deliberate policy to woo the diaspora to come to Ghana, because if you see Ghana and you look at our history, Ghana is one of the countries where a lot of slaves were sent to the Americas and to the West Indies. If you look at our history, there are several ports what do you call it, forts rather, forts and castles by the coast of Ghana. So we had a lot of people being taken away. So people are beginning to trace their history, particularly the African Americans. These days they have what they call, I don't know, tracing their family tree. There's a way scientifically they do that. I think the name has escaped me. So some of them tend to feel that they are coming from this part of the world. The reason why you see that there's this kind of fragmentation is that the people themselves decide which countries they think they have some form of ancestry or something to. So they choose, right? Ghana is open to everybody, but more often than not, those people returning, they decide, and because maybe they might have traced their ancestry, etc., they decide that no, I feel more Ghanaian, so I would want to identify and come back as a Ghanaian, and like I said, like you said, it has opened the what we call after the return. It led to a lot of investments by this returning compatriots. Most have established businesses, clinics, hospitals, a whole lot of things, and so they've contributed a great deal to the economy of Ghana since this massive year of the return initiative was a lot of American celebrities you've seen, from basketball players, musicians, those in the industry returning to the homeland, as they call it. Yes, so there's a great deal of interest, and there's a great deal of for people coming back to the motherland, the homeland or motherland, as they call it. So in that wise, I can say that we are doing quite a bit on that front. Regarding culture, culture really represents what we are, who we are, and I think probably what we aspire to be. Everything comes in from where we began, where our food, our way of life, our clothing, etc. So Ghana is doing a lot in that regard, and it's linked to the year of the return. You see that most people that come right now, our kente cloth has become, I don't know whether most of you know what the kente cloth is. Yeah, it's become something more or less like an African cloth, so to speak. You see that most of these people, these colorful woven patterns of fabric, and it's become like a signature cloth for almost all the people coming back to the motherland. So our culture is reaching far, and based on that, there's been lots of business in terms of clothing and textiles in that regard. African fabric, as you can see, I'm not wearing a suit today. I did that deliberately because I wanted to say that I am Ghanaian and I'm African. So we do, not to throw it in your faces, but we do as much as possible exhibit our culture wherever we go. We do this in maybe in food, in clothing, in dressing, etc. So there's a lot. We organize this initiative, cultural events, to sell our culture abroad. These days you find out that there's a lot of artists, what you call Afrobeats and Afropop stuff going on all over the world. It's also places like Nigeria is a deliberate thing by the government to influence other cultures with what we represent. So most African countries, I may say, are doing quite a bit on that front. I suppose I'll leave it at that.
All right. Well, I know that you have a little time pressure because of another meeting, so we should maybe bring this to a conclusion.
Sure.
Thank you so much once again for having come. It was an honor to have you here.
Thank you.
We very much hope this will be the first of many more visits by you and also the embassy.
Thank you very
Let's
much.
express our gratitude.
Thank you very much. So I wish you thank you for your time, and please enjoy yourself for the other sessions. Thank you.